and assigned me an attempt to filter out any potential embarrassing or offensive stories said about them. I therefore had to unfortunately make some minor alterations to my original 10-page masterpiece. So if I can finish off by saying a toast to them. So, by asking me to do this speech, I'm glad Richard is finally admitting I am the best man. Over the years, we have often battled against each other in various disciplines, with Richard, on some occasions, even managing to only lose by a small margin. Harsh but true. No contest has been so contentious. Awkward. As to who is the tallest, and today I will finally be the bigger man and admit that you are indeed the bigger man. But what use is being tall when you cannot reach the test button of your own smoke alarm? Fortunately for you, I can. Biggest wingspan is crucial for fire. True story. Austin. You've talked about Grace, so I will give an insight into the legend that is Richard Brown. Born in August 1981, this Leo specimen spent his early days growing up in Northern Ireland and Egypt. A promising pupil, he breezed through school and made the move to Edinburgh for his degree. Now, from what I have heard of his time at Edinburgh University, Richard was quite the academic. He was so keen to learn as much as possible, he was one of a select few who insisted on doing a 4-year degree in 5 years. Of course, back in those days, we called that Richard's experimental days. Yes, that's right, he was a science student. He did various experiments such as, if I drink X amount of beer with Y days to go before the exam, will I still pass? The results were not great, but as we all know, to disprove a theory in science is still progress. It was clear Richard was destined for a career in science, and so after a brief holiday in Newcastle, he continued with his science with his clinical research career. Richard has applied all the skills he learned from his education in the job he now does for Quintiles in their quality assurance department. And as we can all see tonight, Grace requires no quality control. I was kind of expecting a bigger laugh than that, but I had been warned that Tulfara's crowd was a notoriously tough gang, so... I believe one of my duties in writing this speech was to dig some dirt on the groom, but I'm afraid that due to an ongoing criminal investigation, I'm unable to comment any further on what I discovered. So, instead of embarrassing the lad, I thought some of you may be interested in hearing how Richard met that special person in his life.
Hey!
And I'm able to reveal that Richard first met me in Edinburgh's Medina nightclub. But today is not about our romance. I suppose you also might be interested in how Richard met Grace. Yes, that's right. We wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for two very special people. Sober me and drunk me. Sober me woke up on a lovely summer's morning in the bonny city of Edinburgh. I knew something special was going to happen that day when I decided to visit the Spiegel tent with my good friend Richard. The Spiegel tent is one of Edinburgh Festival's drinking establishments set in the picturesque George Square Gardens. We were merrily enjoying the fine beers that were on offer when Richard decided to go and powder his nose, leaving me standing alone with no one to talk to and completely isolated. In the distance approached a young lady, innocently walking towards me, completely minding her own business. It was at this point that drunken me decided the natural thing would be to point at this random person, and I mean completely random person, and just shout, "Have you seen Richard?" With a look of complete confusion, she asked, "Who's Richard?" Unfortunately, at this exact moment, Richard re-emerged, so I was able to say, "This is Richard." It's history. So, Richard studied hard. He made it through university, met the love of his life, and then popped the question. Then came the stag do. Or stag don't do, as it should have been called, with all the stipulations and conditions I was given by Richard when planning it. Now, normally with the stag do, what happens in the stag do, it stays in the stag do, but unfortunately not for Richard. Our good friend Baker,
hello,
was kind enough to set up a Twitter account for Rick Brown Stag, and was therefore able to give Grace real-time live updates with photo evidence. Fortunately, Richard's behaviour was impeccable as ever, so the wedding got to go ahead. Unfortunately for other people's partners, the same cannot be said.
hashtag true story.
Oh, it's tweeting. This wedding, of course, would not have been possible without the great work of the bridesmaids. And so on behalf of the bridesmaids, I would like to thank Richard for his kind words, which on behalf of him and Grace. And don't the bridesmaids look fantastic today? All stunningly beautiful, and especially one particular lady. Now, obviously, I am biased, as I have to admit, I do have a particular favourite bridesmaid, but I can't say too much because Fergal's in the room. So. Fortunately, the bridesmaids have overcome the embarrassment of turning up at a wedding all wearing the same outfit. Don't worry, girls, no one noticed. Awkward! As Richard mentioned earlier, he went to great lengths with his proposal by ensuring he had Mr. and Mrs. Lindsay's permission by flying over to Dublin for the day. Thanks very much, Richard, for setting such an expensive precedent. As we're all sitting here today, you would think Austin would be happy about Richard taking his daughter's hand. But Richard has a scar to prove the rigorous initiation process that Austin sets for his daughter's suitors. In the early days, Austin used to give Richard quite a bit of stick. Quite literally. On a beach walk in Wexford, Austin made his position clear when a flying stick, supposedly for a nearby dog, landed perfectly on Richard's forehead. Austin claims it was an accident, but myself, Darren and Richard took this as a subtle warning he was not to be messed with. As the vast majority of my speech has been vetted and vetoed to such an extent it now resembles a North Korean human rights press release. It's short of material, so I was looking at who else would be celebrating today. Page 5 of 12. For Richard and Grace, the relevance of the 14th of September will live with them forever. But I looked into which inspirational and famous people will also be celebrating this day as their birthday. There's not much to talk about. If my research is correct, Star Trek's Pavel Chekhov and former president of the Russian Federation, Dmitry Medvedev, will no doubt be sipping a vodka or two as I speak. But not much else is going on. I then thought, if only you had got married yesterday, then I could have talked about the hugely talented and inspiration to us all, Niall Horan, from Richard's favourite band One Direction, who celebrated his 19th birthday last night. Or perhaps Randy Jones, now in his 6th decade, still going strong as an integral cog in his portrayal as the cowboy of the phenomenon that is the Village People. I'm sure David and Jenny will remember all the posters Richard had of them as a teenager, so. And if only the wedding could have been tomorrow, then I could have talked about the soon-to-be 28-year-old Prince Harry, known second only to the man sitting in this very seat for his embarrassing scandals, many of which can be read in the unabridged version of this speech, available all good stockists or in ebook format at www. Sorry, Richard, I know you specifically asked me not to embarrass you, but I could not resist.com. And for those of you with smartphones who are not afraid to use them at inappropriate moments, yes, I have registered that as a domain website name. Or I could have talked about Ireland's very own questionably dressed sitcom comedian Brendan O'Carroll, celebrating his birthday tomorrow. But today is about the new Mrs. Brown. That just worked too well. Thank you. Anyway, yesterday or tomorrow would have been far better from a purely selfish speech writing perspective. But no! You chose the 14th of September, which seemed to be absolutely nothing of interest to talk about. Or so I thought. Ooh. Now, it was at this point that I was about to talk about 80s sensation Morton Haggett from the Norwegian supergroup AHA, who I found out late in my research that he's celebrating his 53rd birthday today. But apparently, feedback from my filtering meeting with the quality control panel suggested it would not be funny to make up a completely fake quotation from Richard saying, "You know, Stuart, I'm so glad Richard decided..." Richard? I'm so glad Grace has decided to take on me as I've been hunting high and low for someone to make the sun always shine on my TV. So that was the bit that was cut, but sneakily put back in. And for those of you who did not study the discography at AHA at 2 in the morning last night, my apologies for writing such just nonsense. But back to the point. Anyway, as well as One Direction, Richard has many other loves, such as shouting at televisions during rugby matches, numbers, impersonating a meerkat every time he overhears someone mention his name. And as many of you may realise, his favourite thing is interrupting people. Exactly. But I know his greatest love is Grace. It's not even a joke. It's beautiful. Richard, you have been a true friend to me. There in my darkest hours when I desperately needed help. Such as the time when I was petrified that the red colours in my kilt were fading, you selflessly offered to borrow my kilt, proceeded to slip in the ice, and refresh the colour via the blood from your face. The time, that was the bit I was worried about. The time you thought my jeans were looking dangerously dehydrated, and you thought the natural solution was to fall asleep in the pub and pour your pint in my lap. And even as recently as Wednesday, when I was worried that my preparations for the wedding were going far too well, it is as if you predicted that I would be desperately trying to print out my speech just before dashing to the airport, when you decided to not reconnect the printer cable for the second time into my computer after you borrowed it for your laptop. 20 minutes wasted. Anyway, I would like to say some nice things about Richard as well. So if anyone has any suggestions, if you can shout them out as soon as possible, as I'm kind of running out of time. I'm only joking, a subtle text message would be better. If I can just be serious for a moment, probably going to be a lot more, less fun with it. Richard, you've been like a friend to me. Not exactly a friend. No, I'm joking. You're a great friend. I thought I would say some nice things because word on the street is that Richard has apparently got 2 tickets for a holiday of a lifetime in Hawaii and leaving tomorrow. So I thought if I play my cards right, he might offer me that spare ticket. But no, in all seriousness, Richard, you have been a great friend to me. All the times you have offered to be my personal chauffeur when I needed to go places. All those times I could not be bothered cooking and you came round and just made meals that a chef would be proud of. And his mother. All the times you have listened to me and my moans and stresses and it made me feel better. So there's a seriousness about the speech as well. So I thank you for being such a great friend. I didn't go back to being me again. So. No, but myself and Richard, it's not all been fantastic. We have been through the bad times as well. I thought our friendship was nearly over after the Mushroom Gate scandal. I will spare you the gruesome details, but let's just say that I learned the hard way that mushrooms are not meant to be washed before Richard makes a meal. Okay, Momo.
That's the closest we've had to having a proper fight.
If I'm mixing my side this way, like the mushrooms were just covered in like dirt.
You brushed them.
But the dirt's still going to be there. Who thinks you should wash mushrooms? Hands up. Oh, come on, people. Right, fine, you win. Now, Grace. Right down. You look absolutely stunning. Oh. I just wish you had a princess. You're not just my friend's wife. I'm pleased to regard you as a great friend too. You're always fantastic banter, and I always enjoy your company. You're always... I've done that, like. You also introduced me to your twin sister, which I genuinely am eternally grateful for.
Yeah.
Yes. Richard and Darren are very happy with their life choices, and so they highly recommended securing a Lindsay as a partner. Now, unfortunately, Neil did not seem interested, so... As luck would have it, there was one sister left. Cheers, Anita. Now, am I in trouble? I don't know. I go on. As we all know, there are no bad words that can be used to describe the bride. She's a great friend of mine and a wonderful person, and so I could not think of a better person for my good pal Rickles Pickles to marry.
Rickles Pickles!
If Richard was going to leave me for anyone, I'm glad it has been Grace. Never before has the phrase punching above his weight been more appropriate. I would like to thank Richard for making this day possible by proposing, and obviously Grace for lowering her standards. Austin and Rita and Grace, you have raised a beautiful and caring daughter, and if I could just take a moment to say what a fantastic job Anne and Alan have done in raising such an honest, reliable and kind son. But we're not here to talk about David. You've done a great job with Richard as well. Now, some of you will know there is a bet on how long this speech would be. What you probably don't know is that I have agreed to go halfers with one particular participant, so if you can just bear with me. I've been told we can continue. Now, before I do my final paragraph, I just have to add a bit that just happened this morning. Obviously, this again was written. Well, I say a while ago, but it was this morning at 2:20 a.m. But the most bizarre thing happened this morning when I woke up, and I literally woke up to the sound of Richard whistling "The Power of Love" by Celine Dion. There's nothing more to that story, but I just thought I was quite bizarre. Anyway, G-Slice, my co-founder of Run Club. Rickles Pickles, my brother of another mother. You are both pure, dead, brilliant people who are made for each other. Richard, as you're collectively known, I know for a fact you will make each other happy, and so I wish you all the best for your life together. If we can all stand up and raise a glass to the happy couple, Richard and Grace! And I do love them.